And good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and start our pre-conference on March the 24th, 2020. With now in our hands, our capable City Clerk, Ms. Lisa Lambert.
This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, March 24th. Mr. President, we have on the phone Council President LaVon Manzi and Councilwoman Bess Rich.
And good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, all right.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning, Bess. LaVon.
Approval of minutes of March 17th.
So moved.
No, this is.
Everything looks good.
We're pre-council. I know I used to be in down here. Let's roll.
You on it, John.
I know it.
Okay, we have a new heading, Essential/COVID-19 resolutions, and these resolutions are on the agenda as proclamated by the governor to assist cities in passing essential things that are essential to the functioning of cities, and also as they're related to COVID-19. These resolutions, their presence on the agenda means that council members that are unable to attend can vote on these items and these items only. As long as we have a quorum at 10:30 of 5 council members, then we'll be able to continue with the remainder of the agenda. However, the council members that are not present cannot vote on the regular agenda items.
Ms. Lambert, I'd like to ask our attorney a question. And as our clerk just stated, that as long as 5 members are present, if we have to start working remotely, does it still go into effect that we can vote remotely if we had to stay at home, or if 5 people have to be in the same room?
In regards to the essential and COVID-19 matters, you can, all 7 of you can be at home if you want to, but everything else would, so far, would still require a regular meeting with 5 people here.
Just clarification, appreciate it.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
Ms. Gregory.
on that, depending how long this lasts and how bad it gets, and we, really don't know, but
Excuse me.
Here.
Colleagues, I don't mean to be a pest. I just heard Chris Arledge pretty crystal clear. I'm not hearing anybody else.
I'm gonna pull the mic closer.
oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Is that better?
Okay. And I know we've got the self-distance, and I respect that. But it's a little clearer, Gene.
Okay. What I was asking about is, depending on how long this lasts and potentially how bad it could be, which might mean that we would all have to stay at home, in a way to prepare for the worst, should we now not go ahead and reach out to the governor to get more flexibility so that in case we all need to meet remotely, that we could continue our agenda, the whole agenda, not just those items that are coronavirus based, because we don't want everything to pile up so badly that, the city is not working at that point. So she gave us some flexibility, but I think maybe even reaching out to the League of Municipalities and asking them for their help, because everybody's in the same boat. So if we go ahead now and just be proactive and instead of waiting until that last minute, if we're proactive now to ask her for more flexibility, then if we need to, we could all meet remotely. I think it's better if we are able to meet here, at least the 5 of us, because, while we can, but to be proactive, I think we need to go ahead and reach out to the governor for more flexibility.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea.
LaVon, could you hear that?
I couldn't. I did hear it, and I absolutely agree with you. We were not anticipating this circumstance to come to bear. We don't know, and we can't forecast how long we'll be in this posture.
Right.
And so the more flexibility we have in order for continuity of government, the better I think we'll be.
Yeah. I just think we need to be proactive and not wait until the moment's here and say, oh, wait, we can't meet. You know, we all have to stay home, and oh, wait, because of that, we can only take on certain items of the agenda. So if we are proactive now and getting that taken care of, I think that will be the better thing for us to do.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I agree in being proactive, and I just want to remind you, this council has already been proactive by passing the resolution that you passed. In one way, is a backfall. If that doesn't work, if we don't get more flexibility, we've already been proactive by enacting the resolution that Mr. Arledge and Ms. Kessler prepared to allow you, in the absence of a meeting, to sign off on anything that we need to do and allow the mayor to go forward, and then we would go back and take that up the next time. So to keep things from piling up in the event that that does not happen, we don't get more flexibility, you and the mayor acting in concert do have that power.
You okay?
And as we go along, I think we need to, as we adopt the agenda, as a part of a vote and part of the discussion at pre-council, we need to determine what it is that goes in that column under that heading. Because some things, just because it says COVID-19 does not make them essential. Some are just discussions. And so we as a body need to decide on some set of criteria what it is we're going to vote on remotely and not until we get more flexibility.
Well, right, because some of it was just essential, not necessarily virus, but essential city services. So in that respect,
Hell, everything is.
everything is
If we're
essential.
spending tax dollar money, then everything's essential. I mean, what you're really saying, there's no luxury in life.
Yeah, I mean, we
So-
really could.
So the whole agenda's essential.
Yeah.
And when you do that, then there is no essentiality, there's no priority. And I don't think that was the governor's intent.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what her intent was. I think she thought she was helping us continue our meetings, but maybe they didn't recognize that it was still limiting us on what we were able to do as a governing body.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Richardson?
I believe we consulted with our attorney, and our attorney gave guidance in this respect, and he is in agreement that whatever these items that
Councilman Richardson, I can't understand anything you're saying.
Neither can we, Levon.
okay. I said we have consulted with our we have consulted with our attorney, who is in agreement on
Gotta
these.
talk right into the microphone.
He is talking.
He is.
I'm almost to kiss the microphone. I don't know what else we can do. I am on the end. I'm not in the middle. I'm on the end. So I'm saying again that we have consulted with our attorney, who guided us on these essential items pertaining to COVID-19, and these are the items that's up here. So I think if council members take issue with any of these items, they need to state what the issue is, unless it can be reach an agreement on them. But these items were agreed to by our attorney that they fit the criteria of essential.
Before
Mr.
we
Vice
move on,
President?
though, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Jace?
I'd like to go back to Mr. Wood's comments, and I have to admit that I'm not exactly sure what you were saying. Are you saying that it is unnecessary to go back to the governor?
No, I'm not. I think it's a good idea to be proactive and continue to be proactive. But in the event and in the meantime, remember, you don't have to let your items pile up, as long as the president or the vice president of the council, in the president's absence, act in concert with the mayor to sign off on those things that don't fall into the essential or COVID area. So that resolution allows the city to move forward with those items, as long as the mayor and the president or the vice president sign off on purchases or any of those items, in the event that you all are not able to meet and get a physical quorum. So thank goodness I don't think we have that problem today, but should we have that problem, we have that built-in contingency, thanks to the work of the council and Ms. Kessler and Mr. Aldridge together in the resolution that you've already passed. So you have a contingency, you have a plan B, is what I'm saying.
But that would really be an emergency circumstance.
Emergent,
It
yes.
seems like to me where the, anyway, I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
But what I think
Mr.
though,
Chair,
That was Ms. Gregory, then Mr. Richardson.
with that in mind, though, if we can agree to ask Chris, and I know he was writing a note, to go ahead and send a letter, probably to the League of Municipalities as well as the governor, asking for more flexibility, and just explain where we are and what the problem is. You know, thank her for the flexibility that we already have, but that we need more just in case we are not able to be here as a 5-member quorum.
Mr. Richardson.
I agree with Gina 100% that on routine matters, the council ought to be acting. If it's an emergency matter, the council president can act. But on routine business, and what I believe Gina is saying, I agree with, that if let's just say we don't meet for a month, then the routine matter would be so cumbersome that it was set the city back in some way, that we could keep the city going if we can get the governor to rule that we can meet remotely. When these laws were passed, nobody could even imagine that we could conduct business remotely. We didn't have the capability to do that. We do have the capability to do that. And I do believe that if these matters were put before the governor, that the governor would understand the position we are in, and the governor will rule in our favor.
Do we have any other council members? Well, I do have one question. I guess this is towards the council. As far as in public hearings, any comments on that from anyone? My rule is, not my rule, but my thought was just to keep on continuing to have them. And if we can probably, if there is people that want to come down to address it, to at least to stand outside, they cannot fit into the auditorium to sign in, space apart, and then when it's time for them to come and speak, they can come and speak. Do anybody have any suggestion, any comments on that?
No, I think that's a good idea.
I
If
do
in
too.
fact somebody wants to come to speak, maybe prior to when we hold the public hearings, if the clerk's staff could reach out to these folks and find out if there are any problems that they can maybe rectify by telephone rather than coming in person, we could do that. But if they do need to come to speak, yeah, I think you're right. Sign in, have them come in one at a time, and then they can
Yes.
leave, and I think that'll work.
I do too.
Mr. Williams?
No, we're not. I think that if you do that, you might as well just line them up and just say anybody, what we did last week is unnecessary. Just line them up until we can't put them in social distancing out in the atrium or outside if the weather permits, and just let people come in. But last time we tried to say that we were going to try to limit how many people came into this room. It was about in and out and in and out, and it's about the number of people that were coming in contact with in an environment, not spacing. And so what we voted on last time to say, hey, look, we're just going to shorten these meetings. We're going to have a limited amount of participation. That was for everybody's protection, not so that we could exercise social spacing. So I think we need to take a step back and think that thing through before we act on this now.
Mr. Days, you have any?
Well, I thought the council vice president's suggestion was a good suggestion, because if we don't arrange some way for people to make any comments they may have with respect to public hearings, we're not going to be able to take any action on any of these items absent the public hearing. I thought your idea was a good idea.
Dial in.
Yeah, but also at the same time, if we can contact these folks ahead of time, they may be perfectly.
You don't know who to contact.
Yeah, you don't know.
Well,
who to
David and his group do. They know the owners. If y'all can help us,
But just the general public, though. That's the you know, the neighbors or whoever.
Well,
And
that's
the-
true.
And the thing
That's
about it is by keeping going.
I was
again,
thinking more on the blighted properties rather than something else.
And I also believe that the reason that it's good to do this is also because you won't be stopping, you know, a common person from opening up a business or trying to rezone or stopping city business if we do that in that nature. So, yeah, okay. Anybody else? If
Mr.
not,
Mr. Chair, if I might
Yes, ma'am.
interject, we have the spacing for individuals to address the council regarding public hearings. Those people that are present that have no stake in what's listed as a public hearing, they would be asked to leave so that those people that do have a stake can come in and comment. And I think that would be a fair way to do this also, as opposed to having people lined up outside and having them spaced out to come in and out of the door. Those people that are just here just to view and see, they need to be escorted out. They need to leave and let those people that are on the agenda for public hearings come in and state their, be heard. And once they've completed that, then they can leave. And if there is space inside, then those people that were here just to observe can come back in. The whole point is that we're limiting the amount of people that are coming here and I mean, because we're live streaming it. Some people just want to be present, clearly, but they can't, we're not obstructing them from seeing what's going on. The meeting is still open. We're live streamed. They can watch it. We even have it outside on the screens in the atrium. So those people who do not have a purpose for being here with regard to a public hearing, you know, item on the agenda that's affecting them, then they need to be escorted out. They need to leave so that those people that do can be here.
and I do agree. And also, I'd like to throw this out to the council also. If it's something that's real big on the agenda, like the vet on Spring Hill Avenue, that we should hold that over, because that's going to require a lot of people to come in, just like you had the public hearing about the rezoning. But if it's something like a rezoning, like John had one in his district last week and nobody didn't show up, I think we should go forward. But something big as far as like the veterinarian on Spring Hill Avenue, I think we should just hold those over for at least like 60 days or whatever.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, Madam Clerk.
Excuse me.
Yeah, yes, Councilwoman Rich.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, I'm wondering if people have their microphones, even though they're not speaking, they might want to be sure to turn it off. Because I don't know if that's picking up other things. It's very hard to hear the speaker. I think Levon and I can hear Lisa and Chris, but everyone else, we're missing what you're saying.
That's because that's where the,
Exactly.
that's where the phone is.
Okay.
I didn't catch that.
Okay.
I don't-
The regular
I
telephone.
don't have a phone over here.
No, she said Chris. She
Yeah,
said,
no,
Oh, I thought you said
Chris.
she said
Yeah,
Lisa
no.
and Chris.
Oh, you're right, John.
Probably because we're closer.
I'm wondering if, can you move the phone that's picking up for us closer, like to the podium maybe, and put it up above, and see if that helps?
No, everybody sees why. I wanted to do this last Friday.
think-
See why I wanted to do this last Friday? Okay.
Yeah, put it on the podium.
I've been through this.
DJ, can you speak now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Yeah. Can you hear me?
A little bit better.
That is better.
Oh, okay. Then colleagues, we're going to have to really speak into the
You
mic.
just need to speak loudly.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk.
I can't hear them now.
We'll try the other platform.
Yeah, I can't hear them now. Let's bring them back up.
Councilmember Rich and Councilmember Manzi, Council President Manzi, the live stream is also on, so maybe if you tried doing the live stream, then in terms of audio, you can hear from there and then comment.
No, because when we're on the phone, we get feedbacks when the live stream's on.
Oh,
What?
We can work it out between council meeting and pre-conference.
right.
Let's
we'll-
move on.
We'll
We're nothing to
figure it
vote on
out,
now.
in
I've tried
between.
it both ways.
Okay.
Tried it both ways.
Essential slash COVID-19 Resolution 08219, approved purchase order to Mobile Bay Harley Davidson for 2 Harley Davidson motorcycles. 08220, approved purchase order to Sunbelt for 140 sets leather fire boots. And we've added to, under this category, 60249, resolution to prohibit unauthorized congregation of individuals on City of Mobile real property.
Mr. Richardson,
Yes.
would you like to comment on that?
Yes, what I have found is that there are lots of people still congregating on city property. I passed by Sage Park last night to see what was going on, and they had 2 or 3 soccer games going on. People wall to wall up there. They're not paying us any attention. Now, the basketball court is locked down. There's nobody up there. But the rest of it, they just doing whatever they want to do. It's not only that, but you can go to Cathedral Park. I'm saying if someone is out there eating lunch, that's one thing. But for a group out there having a party or something, that's we can't have that. And this would prevent this from happening, will make this illegal. It's really following what the governor ordered on the 13th and on the 17th. So what the council did on the 17th, this is just going a step further with that no person may congregate on any City of Mobile property unless a consistent 6 feet distance between such persons is maintained. And I think this is what we need to do. The point is, if we can't get the public to go home, we don't come up with something, we'll be fighting this virus next year. We have to do what we can do, and then the people at home would have to do the rest, but at least we ought to do our part.
Any other comments from the council?
I'd be interested in what Public Safety Director and the was it Public Services Director?
Public Works, yes, sir. Well, real quickly, so yes, we want to not only encourage, but everyone should be following that guidelines of keeping 6-foot separation. So clearly, pick up basketball games with 60 people in a court, sitting on the benches and passing the ball back and forth doesn't meet that. We locked the basketball courts. They broke the locks and broke the fences to get in. Not good. It would be very difficult to enforce the complete closure of the parks. Difficult because we just don't have the manpower to be able to, put people all the way around the park, some of our bigger parks. What we're recommending as a means to try and enforce what you're proposing is just a increased presence patrol by the police so that if they do see large groups congregating or violating that they attempt to and work to break it up like they would any other large gathering that they see. So that's the intent. The first step, which I think would be the best, I'll let Director Barber talk to that. The next step, if that were to fail, would be to attempt to close the parking lots to the parks, which would then further limit people being able to drive to and congregate. clearly having people jog through the park individually, walk, should not be a problem, or bike.
No.
But if we want to have a family reunion picnic, or we want to have, a touch football game and all this, then, we want to try and limit that as best we can. The next step on the basketball courts, which I think I'll have to look back here to Shonda, is because, we hate the fact that we have brand-new basketball courts and people can't use them. I mean, it tears us apart because that's what they're built for. But just in today's environment, we can't. The next step would be to remove the backboards to the baskets so that we could then, until such time we won't, it's safe to, we've passed this, and then we put them back up and people can use them again. But we just don't want the courts further damaged. We've already got brand-new fences that have been damaged. So anyway, those are the steps we plan on taking to follow what you're proposing. And I'll let Director Barber talk to possibility to do any kind of that enforcement.
I think it's pretty widely known that the Attorney General for the state of Alabama, Steve Marshall, has already said that we, as law enforcement, may enforce the governor's rules. And so if she's limiting congregations up to 25, we can enforce that. We've been working pretty closely with City Legal on the mechanism to enforce, because we're trying to avoid, incarceration for nonviolent minor offenses as well. But yes, the police disbanding or dispersing people that congregate is what we are doing. We're also working with the health department on some of the clubs or bars that I'm aware of that are not complying with the current orders. And so from a law enforcement standpoint, we are working closely with the governor's office, with the attorney general, with the health department to make sure that we do break up this type of activity.
So pretty much this is something that you already is enforcing once the officer does go across a park and see a large gathering of people, correct?
That is correct. And the Attorney General said that under Title 22 of the state code, which the governor has used and the health department has used, that it is enforceable by law enforcement. And so any congregation over 25, we may enforce.
So if it's a congregation of 20, you'll bypass, but if it's 30, then you'll stop.
That's correct. And I believe that's the governor's guideline, is 25 is what they have drawn.
So my question is that to you, Director Barber, what our colleague had presented, it is necessary for this council to pass it or not?
We already have the guidance to enforce the governor's rules right now, and so I don't really see that it's necessary. We've already got the tools. Working with City Legal, we're also having alternatives to custodial arrest in situations where people are resistant to disperse. And so we are working on all those things. But yes, we do have what we need to break up gatherings of 25 or more.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Richardson.
the governor's order covered the entire community. This ordinance, this resolution here is strictly focusing on city's property and green spaces. It has nothing to do with no clubs, has nothing to do with any private property at all. It's addressing the city's property and its green spaces, wherever it is, all over the city. If you're going to be there, you got to be 6 feet apart. You can't be up under each other. And of course, the rule about 25 is still in effect. But on city's property, I'm saying now, I was at the city property last night, and tell me Sunday on the weekend at Medal Park was packed out. Just like just like the governor, nobody else said anything. I'm concerned about what's happening on city property. Not nobody's backyard, not no barbecue, no. On city's property, we can't be derelict in our responsibility. On city property, city officials, we can do something about that. This is only addressing city's property. What the director got to say is that this would harm us. What this resolution would really harm us in carrying out our responsibility. I don't see how, I don't see how this resolution can harm anything. I don't see how it can harm anything.
Mr. Days?
Thank you.
1 minute, Ms. Rich. Mr. Days has it. Mr. Days?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Councilman Richardson for bringing this forward. We all need to be looking at ways in which we can lessen the impact. However, I'm not sure I can support this measure for several reasons. One is we've heard from the Public Safety Director, and he says that it from what I understand, doesn't really add anything to his ability to attack the issue. Number two, I think I'm real hesitant about getting too finite in terms of the council's direction to the administration in terms of how to address this. I think we need to leave the administration, the mayor, with as much flexibility as we can in order to address the situation. And the third thing is I'm not sure how enforceable this is in terms of, keeping people 6 feet apart on all city property. And I've gotten to the point where I just don't like to pass ordinances that we can't enforce. So as I say, I admire Councilman Richardson for bringing it forward, but I'm just not sure I can support this.
Ms. Rich? Ms. Rich?
Yes, I'm waiting for him to be.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My office got a number of phone calls from people who were very concerned about what was going on at Medal of Honor Park. I did contact the director of parks to bring it to her attention and ask what the city was going to be doing about it. And I'm glad that there's some resource that the city is putting towards this. We have very nice trails up there, and I think they should be wide open for people. But I'm not so sure about the playground and having parties and any organized sports, because that's not the 6 feet rule.
I agree with you, Bess. Are you done?
No, I don't see the harm in supporting a resolution. No, not. I think it's a tremendous message to our community, the seriousness of not spreading the virus.
Mr. Chair.
President?
Thank you.
Mr. Manzi?
Yes, sir.
You wanted to speak?
Let me. I do very briefly say that I have some sentiments similar to what Ms. Rich just said. I understand what the governor's put in place, but I have also had messages sent to my office and directed to me, citizens, particularly those in the healthcare industry, who are concerned about the large crowds they see congregating in our city parks, the birthday parties that are continuing that really ought not to under these conditions. And so if there's a better way, if the administration has a plan that they is going to put forward relative to the congregation of people in parks and city facilities, that's all well and good. Absent that, I think this resolution has certain levels of merit, particularly as we're asking citizens to stay close to home and to self-distance and things of that nature. If we're going to ever flatten the curve, then we've got to show some leadership in our own regard.
Mr. President.
Are you finished?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Richardson, it was Mr. Williams.
Okay. Oh, it's me.
That you had something?
I do.
Yeah.
Levon said something about absence, in the absence of something that the administration was going to do. I think that was clearly articulated by Mr. Delap, that we would, Director Delap, so that we are going to do some things differently. I think that it's hard to define once you say we're going to shut down all the property, but yet we're sitting here on property, and I've observed, folks within 4 or 5 feet. I mean, it's an incredible enforcement nightmare to do it with consistency. And if we simply say that we're going to, every hour, we're going to send a patrol by one of those parks, I think that's probably within the beats that they're already working. And at this point, I think to tell the mayor to do more is simply just grandstanding. If there's something we are absolutely certain is not happening, I think we ought to talk to the mayor. We've given them the authority to do whatever. We've been given reassurance that they're going to step up the things that are necessary, and where people cannot participate. And I think that Mr. Richardson gives a great example with soccer. It is an absolute contact sport, just like basketball, and it should not be going on. The best that we can do to break up the soccer games. And we just should simply, let's discourage it. Let's all get on our newsletters and our platforms and discourage it and see what happens. But to pass another law at this point, I don't see it necessary. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Seems like to me some of my colleagues seem to think that this resolution has something to do with the mayor. They go tell the mayor. This resolution is not aimed at the mayor now. The resolution is aimed at the public who won't stay home. It's not aimed at the mayor. And whatever any of us can do to help the public to stay home is what we ought to do. The mayor is not responsible for those kids playing in the park last night. The mayor is not responsible for no illegal activity. But whatever we can do to curtail illegal activity is our responsibility to do it. I don't have to call the mayor and say, I believe I want to do it, and I don't have to do that. Now, I have a resolution here that the mayor has proposed, stating that if you have the COVID virus, you can't come in our meetings. So George said, I don't like to vote on something we can't enforce. For all we know, all of us can have it.
Yeah.
How can we enforce that? He's asking us to vote on it. Know what the mayor is trying to do? Is send a message to the public that if you believe you have to stay home. He's doing the same thing my resolution is doing. So what, somebody gonna stand there to say, let me do a test before you go in, because if you have, you can't. We're not gonna be able to do that. But this is what he is saying on number 1 down at the bottom down there, that if you have it, you've been diagnosed, and your family members, y'all can't come into no council meeting.
Where's that?
Can't enforce that.
Where's that?
Because even if they had it, they're going to say, I didn't know I had it. We're not going to do. He is trying to send a message. And what some council members are saying, don't send no message. We don't want to vote on no message. We don't want to tell them nothing. Let them continue on to do what they are doing. I don't want to go on record telling them to stay home. Because that's all this resolution is trying to do. It is not trying to impugn the mayor, no other, the police department, no, none of that. It's trying to send a message to the public: stay home. And hopefully, if we pass this, the news media is going to put it up there saying the council has passed a resolution telling you to stay home is another way to get the message out there. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah, good idea.
Mr. Chair?
Ms. Gregory.
Mr. Chair,
It's Ms. Gregory.
Thank you, and I appreciate what Mr. Richardson is saying, and I think we all need to go on record and say, stay home. However, as you are staying home, people still need to get out and walk and get some exercise. I can see, as we go forward, if there are people playing basketball, soccer, congregating around pavilions in these playgrounds, shut them down. Put fencing around them, whatever we have to do. But where trails are open, people need to be able to get out and walk.
I agree.
So we need to find some sort of a balance, but I think already we have in place the same sort of enforcement that Mr. Richardson is asking for, and the mayor, if he needs to, can come along and say they're all shut down completely, or if we go on complete lockdown, there's no choice. So if we can have somebody patrolling these parks once an hour, and if we keep our eyes open and the public keeps their eyes open and reports it, if there is a gathering, shut them down. I've got pavilions and playground sets in my parks. What I'm seeing right now are just people out using the walking trails. And I don't want to shut those down, because if you don't have a sidewalk, if you don't have a yard, you need to be able to get out and at least get some sunshine and fresh air and continue exercising. That's what we want to allow people to continue doing while we can. So if we can just be realistic about this and know that if we can't enforce people who have coronavirus coming in here, we certainly can't enforce them not gathering at a park, but we're going to do our very best, our level best. And the mayor has the ability to shut it down if it needs to be shut down. So let's continue doing what we're doing, but keep our eyes and ears open before we have to go any further and try to pass a law that we can't enforce either.
Mr. Chairman?
It's Mr. Manzi. Mr. Manzi?
yes, sir. I just wanted to also make certain that it was crystal clear that none of my comments is meant or intended as a slight against the leadership we've seen exerted by Mayor Simpson, Mr. Lapp, the police chief, our public safety director. It isn't about that at this point. I had an opportunity to come home Friday, drove through some of my neighborhoods, and saw these large congregations of persons. Somebody was having a one-year-old's birthday party in the middle of a park. No no distancing, no respect of those regulations at all. They're just having a good time. And so, if what's in place is working and can be beefed up, I'm all for it. If not, maybe we exclude trails, because I have several walking trails throughout my district. Pavilions and playgrounds that lend themselves to congregations of people ought to be shut down, and the leasing out of space for persons to have celebrations ought to be stopped at this juncture.
Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I'd like to weigh in when my time is, I can't tell.
Hold on.
Yes.
If you want to let
Thank you.
this go on.
Go ahead.
Okay. If you look at number 1 in the resolution, it says, no person may congregate. This business about who is walking, it has nothing to do with walking. It's addressing merely congregating. Beyond congregating, it's over. You can walk wherever you want to walk.
Isn't that already on book?
You go to the park and walk all over the park. It has nothing to do with that. It starts off by saying, no person may congregate. It's merely addressing congregating on city property, city-owned property. But that doesn't do it who could be walking. I encourage walking too. I walk myself. But this is about congregating. We're saying we don't want to say anything about congregating. Some of us are saying we don't want to send that message out there. It's that's what the messaging is.
Ms.
May I
Wicks?
speak? Thank you very much. The pavilions up at Langen Park, to my knowledge, I think you have to call and get organized through the city to use them. And I imagine, of course, that's not being allowed, which is why they're not in those pavilions. Correct. The walking paths are essential to good health, and it also does the 6-foot separation. If you bring people together to events like a birthday party or reunion or any kind of celebration, or kids on the playground or playing games, organized games, we are encouraging and we are not helping the distancing that we need to have. We shut down our centers for the same reason, and even though they're outside events, they're still congregations of people that put everybody else at risk. So I really think the message, and it is a message, and we are asking our law enforcement, our health department to also, be there to inform people what the law is or what the rules are until we get through this period in time that is completely uncharted waters. So I just really hope that this gets passed and the council is unified to make it a strong message. Just like with the curfew, I mean, some people wanted that because they felt they couldn't control their teenage child. Yet others were like, we don't like a nanny state. But this is a health issue, a true public safety issue. And we haven't even done widespread testing in our city yet. So it's really something this council can do to be very enlightening to people and to make sure that it's very clear that they have to separate in order to keep people safe. I hope it gets passed. I really do. I'll have one vote to add to it.
Any other council member? I believe I'm the only one who haven't said anything. I'm on the fence with this. The reason is that I believe that we are premature. That is only 3 cases so far that has been confirmed in the city of Mobile. But the kids don't have anything to do at home. Pretty much, the mall is shutting down, and they got some energy. And we shut down the parks or keep them from really just being active at the parks. Where are they going to put their energy at? In the neighborhoods, and probably doing something bad that they ain't have no business doing, and probably getting arrested and having a criminal record. I believe that we should probably just look at this resolution before we try to pass it. I was speaking to some people in Atlanta on last evening, and they have not shut down their parks, but yet they put around barricades around some of their playground equipments for just in case to keep the kids from playing on the playground equipments for the virus won't spread in that way. But as far as the rest of the parks, currently they are still open. And that's the reason why I'm on the fence, because the kids really don't have anything to do. And I just don't want them to be in the neighborhoods breaking in, doing things they don't have no business doing. I'd rather for them to put some energy out there in the park than versus breaking in somebody's house. And, we cannot raise kids. We cannot, that's the parents' responsibility. And the parents should know if their child is out there in the park playing basketball, soccer, or et cetera. But if the parents allow them to do it, what gonna make this resolution going forward gonna stop them? And then plus we already had heard that they already breaking the locks on the basketball courts, breaking in and playing basketball. I really think that we should look at this, slow this down, and really, I think we are really pretty much premature with this at this particular point in time. So, but we'll find out at 10:30 if this is not held over. If anybody else have anything else to say.
I just have one quick question since Shonda.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Gregg, you got
since Shonda is here and we're talking about congregating being an issue, are you taking any steps right now, proactive steps to try to eliminate the congregating, like around the pavilions or any sort of planned events at these parks? I mean, have y'all done anything to discourage all of that?
I come down because the council members probably
Yeah,
can't hear you.
That way we can hear you better.
I ain't tell you what to do, I'm asking.
Yeah, and bring the microphone up.
We,
Microphone up.
Pick it
No,
up.
hold up, there you go.
Touch it.
Oh,
is
yeah.
that better?
We got your Clorox wipe too.
Thank you. I done touched it already now. Good morning. We are not hosting any events. We have, at our sites where we have community centers, we have tasked the staff that are there to go around and clean up at the park, and so they're going around and talking to people and trying to get them to disperse. We are putting a lot of messaging out regarding for them to have a safe distance. Besides that, there's really not much we're doing. A lot of the parks we're finding are some of the offbeat parks. So I got a call this weekend about Dog River was packed, but we don't normally have a staff person there. And it seemed like everybody else who was at all of the other basketball courts that we had shut down went to Dog River because we don't have a gate around it to shut it down. So that's why we're proposing taking the rims away. So it's really trying to put in strategies as we go. A lot of my colleagues, I've been talking to them, and we've been on a streamline of communication. A lot of them are doing what you said. They are trying to put caution tape around the playgrounds, but people come and tear those down and still go on the playgrounds. They're trying to stop people from congregating, but I mean, we have 78. We have other park people that have 200,000-300,000 of parks, and so it's no way to really close it, but to do a close patrol, and hopefully when someone sees something, they're saying something.
Well, if it comes down to it, and all of these measures are not successful, enforcement, we understand, is difficult whether we pass this or not. Would it help to close off the parking lots so that the only people who could come on would be walkers? I mean, would that have any impact?
So when I think of Medal of Honor, we have 2 entrances in there, so you have to put barricades. Barricades could be easily moved.
I
So if
know,
you don't have
yeah.
police sitting there, I mean, it's temporary because everyone is going to find some kind of way to drive
Right.
in.
Right.
They go, they have the trucks that they go around, so it's really hard. Or you come across through Knollwood and come straight across the grass where you don't have barricades. So my thing is, it's really people and it's managing people, because we're not going to be, a barricade is not going to stop someone from going into a park,
No matter what we do.
no matter what we do.
So it comes down to enforcement, as we've been talking about, and having a close patrol at least once an hour at these parks, or maybe some of our city employees who are able to drive by and see it and report it, or try to break up crowds if they see any, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we are trying to report it. I will tell you from the incident we had the other day regarding the courts, I don't want to put my staff in danger. They did say something and they had some things said back to them, and I don't want to have my staff in danger for
Right,
trying to
right.
break up a crowd.
Something like that, they have to use their good common sense and call the police for
Yes.
help, yes. Right. Thank you, Sean, appreciate it.
Mr. Mazzy?
Yes, sir. I was just going to briefly comment that if these were regular times, and if this were not a health pandemic, I would understand a lot of what I'm hearing. But right now, these young people need to be focused at being at home, so that they don't go off and catch something and bring it back to their moms and their dads, grandmama and granddaddy, who may have some underlying illness and not have the immune system that they have to be able to sustain what we're currently undergoing. Every time I turn CNN on, the number of cases is going up, the number of deaths are going up. And whether it's symbolic, it only stops one family from moving out and engaging in these parks. If it does that, then we would have done our jobs. I'm willing to put conditions so that the walking trails and those other amenities can be wide open. But I think these other amenities ought to be shut off, and the community needs to know from us that that's the directive that we want to see in place. Because right now they need to be at home. They need to be at home.
You finished?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I haven't, there's nothing in the resolution that I propose that has anything to do with closing the park. There's nothing in there about closing the park. It's all about congregating. This is no attempt to close the park. I'm not saying not close the park, but there's nothing in this resolution that asks to close the park. It stipulates how we ought to, how if we go into the park, we ought to be 6 feet apart. That's what this resolution says. If we're going to be at the park, you need to be 6 feet. New Orleans was looking something similar to Mobile. Everything looking good until they start testing. 450 cases. You know why we have 2 cases? No testing. We don't know what it is in Mobile until we start testing. Now they got a lockdown on the city. So this is what the situation is. The only way to get a jump on this COVID-19 is to separate the well from the sick, let the virus run its course, and we're through with it. But until we know who is sick and who are sick and who who is well, we gonna have to use some sort of restraint ourselves. We got to take matters in our own hand. We need to stay. We don't know who. It could be me. It could be you. So since we don't know who is who, to keep it from spreading any further, we're advocating, it's being advocated all the way from Washington, D.C. to Mobile, Alabama, to stay home. And the notion that it's going to be difficult for somebody to stay home, we ought to assist them and let them go out. I don't think this council ought to send any message of that sort, that if they go out, you know, they ought not to be going out because we sent that message that you just need to let some of them just go out. We don't need to let anybody go out. If they're out, they ought to be going out because the parents let them out or somebody else. The council should not send this message to families to let the children go out or any of that sort. As far as I'm concerned, as far as I can determine from the national health officials, the state health officials, and our local health officials, they're all advocating the same thing. Stay home unless it's absolutely necessary. And this resolution is not addressing closing the park. It's saying if you own, it's going beyond park. It's green space. If you own property that is owned by the city, you can't congregate, and if you're there, you must be 6 feet from the next person. That's all it's saying. It's not saying anything else.
Okay, council, I think we spent enough time on this issue. Our meeting's in about 30 minutes. Can we just go ahead and move on? Madam Clerk.
34251, resolution to waive certain late payment penalties on city sales tax and city lodgings tax. Those are all of the essential / COVID-19 resolutions. Public hearings, today is the public hearing.
Wait.
Okay.
we got a communication from Mr. Arledge saying that prior to deliberating on the essential COVID items, that the council should make and pass a motion to declare the items on the essential COVID section of the agenda either necessary to respond to COVID-19 or necessary to perform the essential minimum functions of the council.
Essential COVID
So when,
section of the agenda either necessary to respond to.
so when should that motion be made?
In the regular meeting, at the outset of that agenda section.
At the regular
Outset
meeting.
of that agenda.
When we vote to establish the agenda, what's the right terminology? We approve the agenda. It's my opinion, first of all, the first two items shouldn't be there. The second two should. But the first two were not urgent last week. I mean, because we have a virus, they're now urgent. I would say we really just need to be careful on those, and I'll look forward to that deliberation. But I think the first two ought to come off, and the second two would gain my support to stay on in that column. But you also have to waive the rules of the council as well when the section comes up. Yeah, okay.
And then the other question I had was, I'm kind of losing track of all the things we have going on. We added the resolution to waive certain late payment penalties on city sales tax and city lodging tax. What about the letter to Congress asking them to let cities get relief from the unfunded tax mandate? That would also require, I think, Mr. Arledge, no. This wasn't Mr. Arledge, this was Ms. Kessler had sent us a proposed resolution in order to accomplish that. Are we going to add that to this section?
Are you talking about the unemployment and family leave
Yes.
Medical leave.
letter
Yes.
that the mayor was going to
Yes.
send? That's a judgment call. The governor's order states matters under that heading would be necessary to respond to COVID-19 or necessary to perform essential minimum functions of government. What that means, frankly, is kind of a judgment call on the council's part. So if y'all believe that fits in that category, it would need to be voted on to add it to that category.
Does it appear in some other portion of the, or is it planned on appearing in some other portion of the agenda?
It is not on the agenda. It was sent to us too late to get printed on the thing, so it would need to be added if you want to look at that.
Well, I'd certainly like to ask that we add it, but you're thinking that it wouldn't necessarily need to go in that portion of the agenda and perhaps some other portion.
Well, I hate to be the one making the decision.
No, it
It
shouldn't.
seems kind of optional to me.
Okay, then
Maybe we
Well-
could add it to consent?
add it to consent, yeah. Why don't we just plan on adding it to consent?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I'm going to go back to the comments I've tried to make several times. The only item that really deals with the virus is Fred's proposed resolution to close the parks, or what we're calling the close the parks resolution. The rest of them, the date for filing and paying taxes already passed. It's March 20th. We're just eliminating a little bit of fear and that somebody's going to have to pay or get a penalty. They've already passed the deadline for last month's filing. It was March 20th. So is it essential to the running of or addressing the virus? And the answer for me is neither. Neither is the resolution or the letter to go to the Congress. That doesn't mean we can't take them up in the meeting, but I just don't think they ought to be under that heading. The one thing that should be under the heading is the one that directly addresses our efforts toward the coronavirus, and that's the one that Mr. Richardson's proposing for parks.
Mr. Chairman.
It's Mr. Days. Hold on, Mr. Manzi.
I don't have any, I don't disagree with Mr. Richardson, with Mr. Williams. I think as long as we're producing 5 people at these meetings, we ought to put as few items as possible in that essential COVID-19 section.
Mr. Manzi?
Well, I respectfully disagree with my stadium colleagues, Mr. Williams and Mr. Davis. I think in the environment that we're in, the heading is there in order to take care of business associated with the pandemic. If it's associated with the pandemic, if we're doing it as a result of the pandemic, then I think it would be applicable to that heading. This isn't, right now, we aren't under regular circumstances. And so, while I don't think we ought to pack the whole agenda under that heading, I believe items that are germane to the virus and to the pandemic at this point ought to be under that heading. So I don't find any issue with any of the items that were under the heading this week at all. I'm finished.
Mr. Vice President, if it please the council, if it's the consensus that we take the other 3 items and place them back on the usual agenda under the items of resolutions or in consent resolutions, we can do that in between the meetings. We can move those items and we'll just have one item here under the essential heading, which would be 60-249, if that is the consensus of the council.
Oh, and Ms. Gregory, you have anything to comment on that?
Yes, I'm trying to weigh in. Hello?
Go ahead, Ms. Rich.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I concur with President Manzi about this issue. If you look at the resolution, you'll see that the name of the virus is noted numerous times. We would not be abating people's, ability to not pay their taxes at the deadline. This definitely is related to the situation we're in. And being the uncharted waters, the earlier you designate things with the language, if we do all have to separate and still move our government, then I think we're doing the right thing, and with an understanding that it's part of still letting this system work. But because of the virus, we're doing other things that the council normally does not do.
Ms. Gregory?
Yeah, I think obviously 60-249 is virus-related. And I think, too, like what Bess and Levon have both said, that waiving the sales tax, we wouldn't be doing it except for the virus. So it does relate to that, even though, yeah, they've missed their deadline, but we would not even be having this conversation if it wasn't for the virus. The letter to Congress probably falls into that same category. I know Chris is kind of on the fence about that, and I certainly understand. But again, we wouldn't be sending this if it was not for the virus. And I think in some of these respects, we do have to at least be a little bit more flexible. If we were not doing it because of the virus, then no, we would put it into our regular agenda. But we're only taking these up because of the virus. So at least there are, what, 3? Lisa, is that what it would be, like 3 that would be Fred's and the sales tax and then the letter to Congress?
Why don't we move 8-219 and 8-220 down into some other section of the agenda? And
219 and 220.
220.
Right.
Wherever they would ordinarily go, and then take up the 3 COVID-19 issues, which are
Yeah.
Fred's resolution, the
Sales tax.
the sales tax, and the letter to Congress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Richardson?
before we do that, I would like to ask Director of Public Safety whether or not you see Resolution 08-219 as being associated to the COVID-19 at all as an emergency.
Are essential.
Essential, do you see that as essential?
Which one, which,
Is
The
Harley Davidson?
motorcycles. I mean,
so, in reference to your questions, I think Mr. Aldridge is right. Some of these things are a judgment issue, but you understand, I think the spectrum has been narrowed a bit much by the conversation. Understand that the governor's exception to the Open Meetings Act, which allows you all to vote on either things that are related to COVID-19 or things that are essential to the operation of government. So there are two categories there. It doesn't just have to be COVID. It can be essential to the operation of government or COVID-19. And so when we met and sat down and talked, discussion of what would go into that category, it would be COVID-19 related, anything that was essential to the operation of government, and that typically includes operational, public safety, especially. So to the extent that Harley-Davidson, short answer is, to the extent that Harley-Davidson is related to public safety, and we're treating anything that's public safety or public works or operational as essential to the operation of government, it can go in that category. But Mr. Earledge is right. It's a judgment call for you all. If you want to put it in there, you can, but you're not mandated to do so. It can go in there, but that is completely up to the council and whether or not you do or don't want to put it in there.
Colleagues, if you can just remember that one of the main reasons why we're doing this because Councilwoman Rich had wanted to vote, and pretty much on as much as she can. And one of the essential of public safety is one thing that she can vote on. I recommend before we can go forth that we follow the lead of our attorney, which we're paying him for, and work with our city attorney and let them work out the things that are essential, and then we just follow on, behind that and everything.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Williams.
We pay our attorney, with all due respect, to give us advice. And how we act on that advice is the decision of the council. These were not urgent or necessary or immediate concerns last week, and they shouldn't be because we're 7 days forward with a new category. And I think we just got to be extremely careful with this category. It will one day be scrutinized. And I imagine there's some people out there watching that are normally not watching the council meeting. We're in a real scrutiny, especially with this meeting here being filmed, which I think it always should be. But we need to be very careful, and I'll just say that. I will not contest the other three. I will contest the first two. That's if we choose not to change it.
Mr. Chairman.
It's Mr. Days.
Mr. Chair,
It's Mr. Days.
I'm going back and forth on this, and to me, whether we buy the motorcycles or the leather fire boots, I mean, we know they're going to pass today, one way or the other. The question is, how would we feel about these two items if we weren't all sitting here and we were all phoning in? Wouldn't they then be essential items? And I'm thinking that if this went on for a long time, these would be essential items.
Colleagues, just remember, we got 10 minutes before 10:30.
Mr. Chair, the clerk just reminded us that, Lisa, why don't you?
These two items will be voted on today anyway, because we have 5 people here and they were held over from last week. So we're kind of, y'all kind of beating a dead horse here. So we can just take them off, from essential. If you all don't think that they're essential, we'll put them under held over. They'll be voted on, and, that's that.
Well, if we took them off today, it doesn't mean we could put them, it wouldn't keep us from putting them on later on down the road.
Right.
Our agenda today. Yeah, they're on the agenda today. It doesn't matter where they.
But they're not essential today. They might be essential a month from now when we can't all get together. The same kind of item. That's my concern.
Right.
Colleagues, can I suggest, can we just talk about this at the 10:30 meeting?
Mr. President, I just want to say that I was ambushed when I had the floor. I give up. I didn't finish, and I got ambushed, but let's move on. I want to get it in the record that I was ambushed.
Mr. Manzi?
After 25 years of ambush.
I just want to go on the record that I know I probably will be out 2 more weeks. I just want to go on. Nobody's forecasting that this environment is going to change in those 2 weeks. And in the interim, I want to be able to cast a vote for the 30,000 citizens that I represent. The governor has given me an opportunity to do it. I think any item that's germane to the pandemic ought to be under that heading so that I can dutifully cast my vote in favor or against any item as it relates to this health crisis.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Okay, we're back to public hearings. Public hearing to consider approval of certificate of public convenience and necessity for shuttle service for Shanrick Watson doing business as Trusted and Reliable Transportation. Public hearing to fix the costs for securing structures and demolition of structures and declaring structures public nuisances. 2419 Bruton Avenue, 1364 St. Meter Street, 612 Houston Street, 304 St. Charles Avenue, 2062 Victory Court, 7156 Mobile Street, and 168 West Drive. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. I received one email. We'll check at 10 o'clock to see if we received any more regarding agenda items. However, this one did not have a name and address, just the email address, and we just want to acknowledge that. No, no, ma'am.
10:30. 10:30.
Ordinance is held over. 22008, ordinance to amend section 22.2 of the Mobile City Code dealing with fire service features of the 2012 International Fire Code. Consent resolutions held over. 37185, recommending approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail beer, table, wine, off-premises only license for Lucky 99. It has been requested by the administration that this be tabled. CIP resolutions held over. 01213, authorize agreement with the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners of the City of Mobile for a reimbursable agreement for Baltimore Street and drainage rehabilitation. 21216, authorized contract with ACOM Technical Services for engineering services for Baltimore Street and drainage rehabilitation. 21217, authorized contract with Chris Brewer Contracting for 2020 citywide annual sidewalk repair and maintenance. Resolutions held over. 01218, authorized foreign trade zone operator agreement with Roar Inc. 21221, authorized contract with Southern Earth Sciences for laboratory testing for Bates C&D landfill professional services. 37222, approve a certificate of public convenience and necessity for Sheetra May Wilson doing business as here and there non-emergency transportation to operate a shuttle service. Consent resolutions being introduced. 31226, authorized grant application to the National Institute of Justice for the fiscal year 2020 research and evaluation on domestic terrorism prevention grant. No match. 40227, 228, 229, 230, 231, 232, 233 are the declaring the structures public nuisances, fixing the costs for structures. 37234, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail beer, table, wine, off-premises only license for DP2 stop on Wagner Street. 60250, determine an appropriation to Feeding the Gulf Coast serves a public purpose, a public purpose, and approve payment. CIP resolutions being introduced, 09235, transfer monies, $114,284 from Government Street Signal Improvement Project to Grant Fund Congestion Management Project Government Street from Broad Street to Bankhead Tunnel. 21236, authorized contract with John G. Walton Construction for Baltimore Street and Drainage Rehabilitation. 21237, authorized contract with Mycor Inc., doing business as MDS Construction for James Seals and Sullivan Park splash pad recoating.
Mr. Chair, I just want to find out if the 114 is authorizing the expenditure of it, or is it just being moved into a different fund?
Being moved to the grant fund, or all funds are in one fund, so it's matching $500,000 of money from the MTA.
Anybody have any problem with just taking it up? If it's just a transfer of money? Okay.
That's fine.
Resolutions being introduced, 01238, authorize a reimbursable agreement with Moz for roundabout at Broad Street and Canal Street. 21239, authorized contract amendment with Kimley Horn and Associates for the Government Street Congestion Management Project. 08240, approved purchase order with CDW Government for Malwarebytes software. 08241, approved purchase order to AutoNation Ford Mobile for 2020 Ford F-250 pickup trucks. 08242, approved purchase order to Spring Hill Automotive for one 2020 Toyota Tundra pickup truck. 08243, approved purchase order to Sansum Equipment for a mechanical street sweeper. 08244, allocate $1,741,000 from the Stormwater Fund to capital project for the purpose of dump trucks, vector trucks, sweepers, loaders, etc. 31245, authorized grant application to Department of Homeland Security for the fiscal year 2020 Port Security Grant Program, $2,564,300.88. 37246, approve a certificate of public convenience and necessity for shuttle service for Shanrick Watson, doing business as Trusting Reliable Transportation. 60247, determine expenditure to the Little Sisters of the Poor of Mobile, serves a public purpose, and approve payment. Call for public hearings, 41248, call for public hearing to consider approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity to DeQuilla Smith, doing business as Merry-Go-Round Transportation, to operate a shuttle service scheduled April 7th.
Council, I recommend that we reconvene at 10:45. If we can have a little break in between, do y'all agree?
I do. I just have one question on the ordinance that's being introduced, or excuse me, that was held over, completely got by me. If I could talk to the public safety and public works or whoever is putting this together. I just want to know what the impact is on cost for construction and why we see it necessary. So if you could, real quick. Fire apparatus
22.
access road, the ordinance being, that was held over and introduced. We'll do that privately, and then you just be prepared maybe to make comments at the meeting. Thank you.
Everyone good with 10:45? Yeah. All right. See y'all at 10:45.